a screen that we can just drop it when it's ready to go.
All right.
Find my mouse. Where did I put the mouse? Mouse. Okay, there it is.
I just put on there, it said, please comment as you join us. Nobody's joined us yet, but.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm seeing.
Oh, no, I got one.
Hey, if you guys are just beginning to join us for Between the Pages Live, just say hey to us down in the comments so that we know you're here. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes.
Oops.
If you could look through that one right quick. That
This one?
was
I need one of these for Meg.
yeah.
Future daughter-in-law's in nursing school, so.
Hey, if you're just joining us for Between the Pages Live for tonight, just definitely make sure you just say hello to us. Just comment so we'll know you're with us, so we can say hey back. We need some music. But let's not pull out any of the old tunes, okay?
We got it. I go stalking everything.
We
The
got
guy that played the clarinet, but saxophone from the 80s. The one here.
Oh,
Kenny G.
Yeah.
Yeah, need some Kenny.
Kenny G in the background.
Vicky and I worked together. We would make up songs because we can make them up on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
And we would drive certain people working with us insane because things would get really bored, but something stupid would have happened earlier, and we would turn it into a song.
Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing we could always find a song for just about any situation.
Yeah, you know. We could think on our feet, that's for sure. So,
Hi everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Between the Pages Live. We want to say thank you for joining in and coming back to visit us again. I've got Dave Mayer, a young adult author, with us tonight to talk about his books. And Mary's back to help co-host tonight with us. Now, let's see what we got going on here. Mary does the indie author book reviews. So if you're an indie author and you're looking to get your book reviewed, you can definitely contact Mary. And you can go to our webpage, southernpen.com. And you can click on Writer's Toolbox, and Mary's contact information is there, her email address and her website. Mary, thank you for coming back and being helping co-host tonight. We really had a good time last Thursday night with Marlene, didn't we?
We did. Great evening with Marlene. She's always a joy to be around. Always lots of fun, and enjoyed talking about her new book and her first book that was out.
Yeah, Marlene's always a good hoot and to have around. And so, well, if I ever hit the right buttons. But anyway, it looks like I have gone off, and I don't have Screech helping me tonight like I did Tuesday night. So anyway, let me just fix this right quick, guys. I apologize. You're going to get to see the broadside of me for a few seconds.
Well, while they fix that, you want me to tell them about a couple of things here?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. If you are an indie author and would like to get your book reviewed, as Dickie said, the contact information is on the Southern Penn's website under Writers Resources, Writers Toolbox.
Yes.
I'm sure you can find it. But send me a note. I'll be glad to try to get you on my list for a review. We really enjoy indie authors. We try to do everything we can to help promote them and their books. If you have not been to the Southern Penn, make sure you come to Monroe and come in to visit. We're also online at the southernpennbookshop.com, where you can find all the books that are in the shop on the website.
Right, and as I said last week, we 100% support the indie author community. Indie author to us is any author who took a non-traditional route of getting published. Doesn't always necessarily mean you're a self-published author, but if you used a non-traditional publisher like a hybrid press, or if you used a small independent press to publish your book, we're the bookstore for you. And we're more than just a physical brick and mortar retail outlet. We are located in Monroe Mercantile, downtown Monroe, Georgia, right next to Chili's Cafe. We're on the street level side, part of the building. But we also have the website, and we actually have been known to pack the bookshop up and hit the road, haven't we?
We have, and unfortunately the events of 2020 so far have prevented us from being able to do that, but as soon as things slow down a bit with that, we'll be packing and hitting the road again, I'm sure.
Yes, we did have a lot of events planned this year to go and take the books on the road, but like you said, and all of us are singing from the same hymnal right now about 2020. If you are an independent author and you would like to get your book submitted for consideration to be a part of the Southern Penn Bookshop family, you can go to the website southernpennbookshop.com and click on author submissions. It'll take you to a page that'll tell you a little bit about what we do for you, the authors, how to get your books in the shop, and also an application. We do vet the books that come into the bookshop just to make sure that we're giving our readers a good quality book. So we do request a submission. So there's two things I always say about a book that they should never be judged by. One is its cover, and the second is how it's published. So let us introduce you to your favorite independent author. Now, before we bring Dave on tonight, there's a couple things we want to go through, some news and events and updates. One of them is, now Mary, you remember I talked to you earlier this week about Screech?
Yeah.
You want to tell them about our wonderful little drop-in guest we get every once in a while?
I'll let you tell them about it.
Screech came in as a guest cat, and his status has been changed to resident cat this year. But he decided to drop in and visit us last week with Marlene, and he actually dropped in and visited me Tuesday night and did a little technical work for me. So, but our air conditioner, our brand new air conditioner, died on us. Mm-hmm. And this is Screech after a day of no air conditioning. He literally looks like he's melting off of the TV table. But this is Screech in prep mode for tonight. So you can see he's all curled up. And I think what happened, Mary, was he read, and this, we're all adults here, okay? I think he read the bedtime stories for tired ass nurses. Because he was sound asleep, as you can see up here in this picture. Mm-hmm. He was so asleep he allowed me to kind of stage the picture a little bit. The cat never moved. But this is a cute little book we have in the bookshop. If you've got anybody, or if you yourself are having to be on the front lines of dealing with the COVID and everything, this is a really cute tongue-in-cheek book. And you know how many times working 911, we could always make a good story out of anything. Mm-hmm. You and I were talking about how we could make good songs out of things. I think even if you're not a nurse, there's some parts of this that how many times did we sit there and have to just not be able to go run to the bathroom because something was going on?
Oh yeah. And the nights that when we'd finally get a break and decide to try to eat something, that would be the one night out of that month that there were 2 back-to-back armed robberies. And you never got that cup of coffee or
Yeah.
that sandwich eaten.
So even if you're not a nurse, you'll understand. If you're in any type of public safety service or a public service, you'll understand the woes of the three nurses in this cute little book about the trials and the tribulations that they go through during their 12-hour shift. Now, while this book is really great to help relax and put that tired person to sleep, it does come with companion bath shower bombs that'll wake them up and invigorate them. So you can find both of these on the Southern Penn Bookshop's website.
And it also makes a cute gift. My future daughter-in-law is going to be a nurse. She's currently in nursing school at West Georgia. And I think she'd really get a kick out of that book. It's funny, and it really covers a lot of things that they deal with.
Oh yes, definitely it does. So I just wanted to kind of let everybody know that we have that. Now, Tuesday night I highlighted Lessons Learned publications.
Yes.
Simon, and I told him a little bit about Simon and his wife Cheryl and how
And the babies.
How for so many years they just tried to have children and couldn't, and then they didn't get blessed with one, they got blessed with twins.
Yep.
Well, they have that one series of books called Come With Me, and I thought about you, and I told everybody Tuesday night that we had to tell this story with you here, because that's my brother. He's cooking supper for me. You had to be here to tell this story, because when I started talking about this book, I was like, Mary should have really gotten this book for me and gifted it to me. Do you want to tell them the story about me and Rome and Italians and Romans?
I'm not sure there's enough time in the evening. Let's just say that Vicki is rather geographically challenged.
Yeah, really. Who needs geography,
Uh-huh. And one night we had a very interesting discussion at the 911 center. Now, keep in mind, there are three of us working. I am a Baptist working with two Catholics. And it was brought up as to where the Pope was.
Actually, it was Jim Hollywood.
Oh, I forgot Jim
He
was
said,
there too,
when
yeah.
Romans become Italians and Italians become Romans.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about that part. Yeah, you go ahead and tell her, because it's hilarious.
So anyway, I piped up and I says, well, what's the significance of this? The Romans are Romans and the Italians are Italians. Because I was thinking, Vatican City is a country, and it didn't hit me that, it's in Rome, Italy. So by that time, your head snapped around.
Yep. And Tina, I think, was working with us.
Yes, Tina Starkey was working with.
And Tina, I think Tina was on Sheriff's Radio, and she just kind of stopped for a minute. It was like standing there looking at Vicki and going, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, but you came to my rescue. You quickly printed off a map of Rome and explained to me
highlighted where the Vatican City was, and that yes, the Vatican City is in Rome. Rome is in Italy, and Vicki needs geography. So,
and that's not my first little run into my challenges with geography. I think every year somebody threatens to buy me a world atlas. But anyway, I thought about that Tuesday night when I was sharing the Lessons Learned publications.
Bruce just popped on, so he got to hear the story yet again of Vicki being geographically challenged. So,
oh yeah, poor Bruce is my husband, and bless his heart, he has learned when I say something that is just off the reservation as far as geography. He just rolls his eyes now. He just knows that I'm having a Rose moment from the Golden Girls. I think if I ever got to play a part in Golden Girls, I'd have to be Rose because of Blanche is my idol, but I guess I'd have to be Rose because I'm a little ditzy when it comes to geography.
Yeah, if you ever go anywhere with Vicki, ask her for the address of where you're going. Don't let her try to give you directions.
But the funny thing is I used to fly airplanes.
I know. The scary thing is that she used to fly airplanes.
Yeah, I could navigate in the sky.
And she would teach people how to fly airplanes. And I have to say that riding with Vicky has always been an experience. We left the 911 center one day, the day after Thanksgiving, and went shopping briefly, and she was taking me home. She missed the turn to my road, and she whipped up in the hospital and on 2 wheels turned around and went down the road. And when we got to my house, I got out of the car and kissed the ground because I wasn't really sure I was going to make it back there at the time. And there are other stories I won't get into, but let's just say she leaves her mark on people.
I was just practicing my Power 180. I've watched my husband do it all the time. I thought, well, you know, how hard can that be, you know? So I hit a few curves, you know. That's the reason why I have it. I'm kind of like the character in Fried Green Tomatoes. I'm older and I have insurance, so. But getting back on track, the Writers' Conference, I kind of mentioned this last week. Unfortunately, the Writers' Conference for this year has been canceled. We are working on getting it scheduled for next year. We are looking for a new venue, and we're hoping to be able to have some more detailed information about that by the end of August, the 1st of September. So just want to let you know that the Writers' Conference for this year, unfortunately, has been canceled. Trust me, I made that decision kicking and screaming because I was like a kid. I want to go. Don't forget that the last Wednesday of next month, I think it is August the 26th, we're going to have our first virtual book trivia night. That is going to be done through Zoom. We're going to put an event up on our Facebook page where you'll be able to get the Zoom link to the Zoom room to be able to join in and have good fun with us. The trivia questions are going to be just literary in nature. We do have a bonus book next month, which is Bringing Back Abundance. I just love it. My brain just takes little vacations on me. Bringing Back Abundance. That is going to be the featured book by Barbara Tucker. Now, the reason why I chose this book, and I kind of mentioned Fried Green Tomatoes a while ago. This, if you loved Fried Green Tomatoes, you're going to love this book because it's the style of this book. But you know, you grew up in a small northwest Georgia town.
Right.
And I grew up in a small northeast Georgia. I grew up in Washington, Georgia. And you know, during our times of growing up in our towns, both of our towns were pretty much textile towns. You know, that was the main economic driver for our communities. I mean, was the textiles. There was like 4 or 5 different textile plants in Washington. And as before, you know, everybody's, you know, now says everything goes over to China. But before all that, I mean, we started slowly in about the late 70s, early 80s, started seeing the textile plants closed down because the jobs were going overseas to other countries. Well, that is kind of the situation here in bringing Abundance back. Abundance is said, the town is Abundance, South Carolina.
Okay.
And the name of the town is after the Abundance Flour Company, who is shutting its doors. It's shuttered its doors, and its downtown has become ghost towns. You know, and Monroe was kind of like that when my husband and I first moved here. Downtown Monroe was really a ghost town. I mean, you could drive down Main Street and you just see empty stores. And so one particular spunky Southern lady says, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm going to bring Abundance back. So her idea is to have the first annual biscuit festival. Now, every good Southern woman knows how to make biscuits. Not the Womp biscuits, but
popcorn biscuits.
Popcorn biscuits, you know, the Womp biscuits, you know, those are biscuits that you have to hit the side of the counter and get them to open up and they say Womp. So anyway, you would think everybody in little Abundance, South Carolina would be all on board to get behind bringing people into the town and revitalizing the town with this biscuit festival. But guys, if you ain't never lived in a small southern town, you have no clue how cliquey a small southern town can be.
And petty.
And petty. And political. If you guys think the national stage of politics is bad, Oh, they don't have anything on small town politics. So anyway, she hits a lot of roadblocks in trying to get her biscuit festival to go on. So I thought this would be a really fun and delightful book to have for our August book. And then again, like I said, if you enjoy fried green tomatoes, you'll definitely love this book. And if you are from any small town, not just a southern town, but any small town that has watched, its jobs evaporate and its economy take a downturn, you'll understand the struggles that is in this book. But it's got some good humor in it too. So
Sounds like a really good book.
it is. It really, really is.
Really makes me wish that we were still able to have events at the store, because I miss eating at Chili's. And if we had trivia at the store, we might could get Chad to make us some biscuits.
Oh, and I tell you what, Chad, if you guys ever come visit the Southern Penn Bookshop, you have got to go and eat at Chili's Cafe. Now he's touted for being known for his hot dogs, but I have never had anything on that menu that's not been good.
Oh, everything I've ever had has been just absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
So
Now my favorite's the Monroe Mercantile.
I'm not sure what my favorite is, because Chad will do like a special order for me sometimes if I want like a Philly cheesesteak, but since I'm not eating a lot of bread, I don't want it on bread, he'll ramp it up a little different way for me. So it just, everything's good. I have no complaints at all.
Yeah,
in fact, I need to go down there and just eat lunch one day. So,
yeah, definitely. And if you'd like to get to know a little bit about Chad's general store side, you can actually visit Chili's general store page on our website, southernpenn.com, and to kind of see some of the great things that he does have in the general store too. He has some really good sauces and preserves and jams in his shop. We go there every year. Every time we've got to do something for my father-in-law, that's where we go. Chili's General Store is our go-to place. So definitely make sure that you sprinkle the love with your friends about our live episode. Make sure you give us some love, or give us some, hey, you guys are really cool. Because at the end of the show tonight, we are going to do a giveaway. So definitely make sure you sprinkle the love with your friends,
and make sure that you comment, even just to say hello, so we know you're on there. Because it won't tell me names of who all's watching unless you comment.
Right. So anyway, now that we've waded through all the news and events and the updates and all the backstories of some of the wild times that Mary and I used to share at the 911 center, let's get down to our author tonight. Now we have Dave Mayer. He's a young adult author. He's going to come and share with us about his two books, Blue and White and Cherry Tree. And so let's go ahead and get Dave on up here. Dave, come on in and say hi to us.
And if you've got questions for Dave, send them in. We'll be glad to try to fill some of those. Just put them on the chat.
Hello, how are you guys?
Doing fine. Glad to have you with us tonight.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Now I am going to tell you, we may get Screech come in, but he's been on the quiet side.
I'm
So.
not opposed to pets visiting.
Well, now let's see. You want to start with a little bit of your background?
Yeah, I've been teaching for 24 years. So, and I lived in Northern Illinois, and I played baseball, and I coached once I started teaching, and then I moved to Southern Illinois, which kind of gave me the background of the story that I wrote, and then I moved to Georgia, and I've been here for about 18 years now.
So, what brought you down to Georgia?
For the longest time, I wanted to move south. When I was up in Northern Illinois, I was supposed to be on the baseball team. Calculus got the best of me, so I didn't play baseball. But I was a statistician or a scorekeeper, so I went with the team. And we went on a spring trip and, rode the bus down during spring break. And it's, March or April, and it's cold up in northern Illinois. David played 20 games or something down here. I'm like, I gotta move south. So that's when I kind of had the beginning of I'm going to move south when I graduate from college.
My parents briefly moved to Detroit for a while, and I'm so thankful they moved back before I was born because I don't do cold.
No.
So,
Yeah, but somebody forgot to tell you about how you literally wear summer down here, right?
Well, see, that's the thing. You can always be in the air conditioner. It's the falls and the springs that make the difference.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Dave a few minutes ago about where he currently teaches. He actually teaches some of my sort of extended family at the high school there. So he's you teach history.
Yes, I had one 2 years ago, and I probably will have the youngest one this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess it's a good thing you don't teach geography.
I did several years ago. I kind of had to smile when talking about the Vatican and Rome and all that. Yes.
Yeah, I literally took geography in college, and I was just thinking, I really don't need to know. Listen, if there's any young people in school right now that is watching this, if you think, oh, I don't need to know this, I don't need to pay attention to this, it ain't gonna never affect me, oh yeah, that geography has bit me in the hiney more times than what I care to admit. So you teach world history.
I teach world history, yep.
So you guys are really, really having to think on your feet right now with the changes.
It's quite the experience. 24 years in, and here we go. Fasten the seatbelts.
Yeah.
I had a coworker that just retired last year. I think he picked a good time to retire.
Definitely. Now, I was reading through some of the reviews on your books, and I loved what one of your students wrote and said that it was kind of they were really, I guess, surprised because you say something like giddy up.
Yeah, I have what they call Mayerisms, little phrases that I say like giddy up. I can't think of the others right now. So just that in itself. And it's funny too when the students hear that I write, they immediately think, "Oh, Mr. Mayer wrote history books." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to. That requires research. I'm not going to write." You write what you know, and you don't want to have to do a whole lot of research. So I wrote fiction, and of course, then immediately people think, well, baseball, which the first one has a little bit of background, but no, they think I write history. I'm like, no.
Yeah, and that particular student finished out the review that she was really impressed at how well you and enjoyed your book. So
right.
I think as a student, you don't see your teacher as a human, real person. You see them as a teacher, and then you see that human side.
One thing I do want to plug that I'm really proud about is that all three, like you guys were asking me earlier, my cover was created by a former student. Picture on the back was created by a former student. My editor is a former student. So I'm trying to, and so I promote them as well. But it's kind of a neat thing to bring in former students I've had to be in the writing process with me.
Now, because your covers are really, really kind of simplistic. What made you go with such a simplistic type of cover?
That was one of the things that my editor really emphasized. I just wanted the simpleness and just of the blue and white, and then of the other with the cherry tree.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it kind of draws you in because it makes you want to pick it up and find out what it's actually about.
Yeah.
So, but in your books, do you draw any inspiration from the students that you've had?
Oh, yeah, both good and bad, obviously. There's things like my very first year teaching, I had a student that died by getting hit by a train.
Ooh.
He was drunk, apparently. He fell asleep, train burned down, he woke up and got ran over. But just things like that cannot help but influence you in the way you look at the world. And then just, the little quirks, like, for example, a couple people have asked me if any of my students are main characters. Only one student that I've had in my 24 years is actually, her personality is one of the students, and that's Alexa. But otherwise, there's things I've heard, things I've seen, like when I was in Southern Illinois.
Right. Now, how long ago did you write these books?
It's been a journey because when I originally wrote Blue and White, and I wasn't happy with it. And because I edited myself and all that, got it out, and then one day I was at Starbucks, and Jess, my editor, was in Starbucks, and I got talking with her. She was an English major, and I approached her and said, "Hey, would you like to edit my second book?" Knowing in the back of my mind too, I wanted to potentially have my first one edited. So what we did is we did the second one, which is Cherry Trees, and then I went back and re-edited and just rewrote the first one, retitled it and everything.
Now, I'm getting a message here. It says, who is his editor and his cover artist?
Jess McLeod is my editor, and Taylor Watkins is my cover designer. Yeah. And then I got to then promote. My photographer for the others have been, for these first two, was Avery Pritchett.
Do they do editing and book covers for other people? Is it a sideline that they do, or a profession that they have, or do they just do it special for you?
That was something Jess was looking into as an editor. She was looking into potentially doing her own publishing company. I think, she was in grad school, and she was already in college when we started undergrad, and then she went into grad school, and now she's finishing up. But I think she's seeing that she wants to do more of the writing as opposed to the publishing. But I know Taylor's into design too. She's going to Georgia Tech, I believe. I mean, they're all smart kids, so I'm really lucky.
Of course, I have you as a teacher.
I'm really lucky to have them. And they're thankfully they're flexible too, in the sense of, like, Taylor, I'll just send something. Hey, can you do this? Can you adjust the margin and of the cover, etc.
So these books have been out for a while, then.
Yeah, 2 years. Blue and White, the reboot, came out. It's been out 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said you have a third book coming out.
Hopefully it comes out by the end of August, which will be the third one in this series.
And the name of it?
Sunset Sunrise.
Sunset Sunrise, okay. Well, in Blue and White, we meet Julio and Jeremy.
Right.
And they're kind of part of the focus of it. And the story is actually told by another character in the book. Tell us a little bit, though we don't give the whole thing away, but tell us a little bit about Julio and Jeremy and their journey throughout this.
Yeah, well, it's an African American family. They're two brothers, and they play baseball. And they're really good at it. And they moved from a suburban town in northern Illinois to a small town in southern Illinois that's all white. And it's always been all white. And so really a lot of the emphasis of the story, there's this baseball background, but it's about acceptance and friendship and kind of this awakening that some of the people see, especially the narrator, and how you see there's a kind of awakening that he has, because he even admits that he's never had or been around African Americans.
So what time period is this book set in?
It's in the present.
It's present.
It's around in the late. It's like 2010-ish.
Okay. All right. So really, even though this book's been out a couple of years, it's really relevant to what we're seeing going on right now in our society and in our country.
The one way you know it's in the 2000 the texting, like in Cherry Trees, especially texting becomes, because then the brothers go separate ways. But the relevance is kind of interesting because it's a book that I think you can relate now, as opposed to, it's timeless, I guess is a good word for it. And part of it is just because some of these issues are timeless issues. Right. Racism is a timeless issue. Depth is a timeless issue. Acceptance is timeless.
Right. Tell us a little bit about Alexa.
It's funny because I was talking to someone just the other day, and I did not intend for her to be like the main character, but through the series, it starts off in the first one, Blue and White, but she's really the straw that stirs the pot. I would say she's probably a strong young woman, okay? And she's from California, and she moves in, and she moved in her junior high. And so with her parents, she's more accepting of minorities because she even had friends in California. So she starts dating Julio, which obviously does not go over well with some of the people that live, especially her best friends. So again, there's that she has to decide: do I want to date Julio or do I want to keep my friends? Which is again something about acceptance. It's a timeless idea, I think.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and the thing is, you know, we kind of talked a little bit about this at the beginning while we were waiting for the show to start. You know, my first grade class was the first integrated class in the county that I grew up in, and that was in 1971. And it was, even when I was in high school in the early 80s, it was, interracial dating was just so taboo. I mean, that just was something you did not do. And I just love the way that I have seen things progress and those barriers get broken, because I have a first cousin whose teenage daughter, well, she's in college now, who was able to bring home an African American young man as her date, and the family embraced him, and the family accepted him, and maybe, you know, he was just like one of, you know, it wasn't like the whispers and the looks and things that you would have gotten back in the early 80s if that had happened. And my aunt, who is in her 70s, you know, she now has an interracial marriage, and you know, and this is somebody who grew up when segregation was prominent and all of the civil rights was going on, and here we are in 2020, and you know, she has an interracial marriage. So, you know, something that was taboo for me now, it is so good to see that barrier is not there anymore, and that, you know, you don't have to say, oh, I can't have a relationship with you because you're a different color than I am. You're a different race than I am. You can judge people off of their characters. You know, and I'll never forget the first time I had a conversation with my dad about interracial relationships, and I was an adult. I was living on my own. And we got into, I don't know how we got into the topic of it or anything. And I says, well, you know, Dad, you know, if you die and go to heaven, there's not going to be a white side to heaven, and there's not going to be a black side to heaven. I says, we all going to be having to get along. So, and I think that made him realize that I did not share the views of what I was taught as a child growing up.
Well, we tried hard to raise our kids not to see color. And Will, our youngest one, his best friend since 6th grade. Now, back up. My son is about 5'9", maybe 5'10", white male. His best friend is a 6'3" black male. They've been friends since 6th grade, and you know, Brandon is part of our family, and will always be, and his family is part of our family. You know, so looking back at how things were back when we grew up and how they are now, or how we've tried to raise our children for things to be, there is a difference. But in your story, one thing I like, I grew up in a small town, and I know baseball only plays a kind of a minor catalyst part in this, but sports were really big in the town where I grew up, and it was a way a lot of times for new people to get accepted, and to you know, kind of show their, you know, abilities and all. And in your story, Julio and Jeremy both are baseball players, and the coach welcomes them in, but they still have a little trouble with some of the teammates as they go along.
Right. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have a narrator by one of the teammates, just the progression he sees. But yeah, again, like I think you were talking about how there's a lot of little cliques in small towns. Again, this town is no different than most towns that are small towns. So there's, you know, those cliques, and like, you know, you're not here. You don't belong here. So they had to sadly earn the respect and earn the friendship, which, you know, it's no different than if you go back in the 1950s with Jackie Robinson. So they just had to earn that, and they had to plug away and just do their thing. and Julio and Jeremy, well, especially Julio, knew and was confident and knew that, hey, we're going to get this. And they don't have to accept us. We're just going to be our guys.
Now, how much of a role does the parents play in helping them get to? Because I mean, to get through the barriers and adjustments and get the acceptance. I mean, how much support did the parents give them?
See, that's an interesting thing. Let me backtrack with answering that question. Being a white male, it was like, how do I approach the two main characters being African American and having it a good story? And that was one of the reasons why I used a white male as a narrator to kind of see that. So there's that. But one of the other things too is, again, admittedly, I did not want necessarily the parents to play a major role, or it just did not happen. I wanted the kids to play a major role. The Mike, who's the narrator, Zach, and then just Alexa and everyone else. I wanted them to play, Nicole. I wanted them to play a major role. So the parents played a major role in raising them. You can tell that in how the two boys are raised, but I don't want to address it. It's kind of there.
And the parents are kind of in the background as you go through. They comment, and they like when he comes in with the stuff written on his car. Mom goes and tries to take care of that for him, but I don't see in the book where they are lecturing them on how they should behave or why this is that. They kind of take a back seat.
Yeah, and again, some of that could have been addressed behind the scenes without Mike knowing about it.
Yeah.
But again, I wanted you to know as a reader that the parents play a major role just because of the way the boys are acting.
Right. You, as my mom would say, you would see the raisins in how they handle things. And that kind of made me think of an episode. My brother just absolutely loves Andy Griffith, and while he's been here recovering from some surgery he had, I've watched almost every episode of Andy Griffith, but there was one particular one today that it just caught my eye, and it was apparently Opie had found some money, and his dad thinks he stole the money, and he goes and gives the money back to the rightful owner, and Andy is just livid with Opie because he's thinking, Opie lied to me, he's been dishonest, he's stolen. And then when he goes to confront Opie says, hey, I knew that once I knew that this money belonged to somebody else, I knew it wasn't mine to keep. And, you could just see Andy kind of have that expression on his face like, I should have trusted myself as a parent in doing the good job I needed to do to raise you.
Right.
And one question I'd like to ask you is, you're tackling a very, very hotbed topic here, and you're writing from the point of view of the characters of experiencing racism, but you're white. So what makes you think that you truly can understand these characters?
And that's one of the reasons why I had a white narrator, I think. Yeah. Because again, when I originally wrote it, I wrote it from the third person. But then I went back after doing Cherry Trees and writing that one. I wanted to go back and like, okay, who do I want to have narrate Blue and White? And I thought, who better than one of the baseball players? And Mike Williams was one of those guys in the team that was always just there, good player, not the smartest kid, just, and I thought, well, he'd be a good narrator.
Right.
So that's kind of how it came about. But, I mean, it's just, again, you asked why did I get into this, right? Just my observations. When I lived in southern Illinois, some of the things I heard, some of the things I saw, for example, the notion of what a sundown town is. If people don't know what that is basically, if you're a minority and you drive through town and you get stopped and the sun's down, you probably won't make it out of town.
And I have to tell you folks, I grew up in the South, and I did not know about that term until tonight, because again, maybe it was just something that was never brought to my attention as a child growing up in a small southern town, but In Illinois, a lot of people don't think of it, but in southern Illinois,
some of those, it's notorious down there. There were some sundown towns, some counties. There's segregation, and it's to this day. There's segregation by law, which obviously is illegal, and there's segregation by choice. And it's something that's still to this day. And Southern Illinois is no different.
Forsyth County here used to be
Yeah.
a sundown county, more or less. You didn't want to be there.
So Franklin was one of these towns. It's a fictional town, but it's one of those towns that's becomes segregated by choice. You are not welcome here. Do not move in. And the people of the town do whatever they can, or a lot of them, to not make them welcome.
And so as a person living in that area and being able to witness it firsthand and everything, that's what really helped you.
Or at least I've heard about it. I never really witnessed it, but I've heard about it. And I did teach some kids in Southern Illinois that had some rather blatant racist tinges to them. So.
Right.
Well, and moving on to cherry trees, tell us where that picks up and kind of where it goes.
Yeah, well, and without getting into too much, it's Julio's graduated, and he goes on and he's going to play baseball after graduation. And it starts off with Jeremy as a junior. So in blue and white, Jeremy is a freshman and Julio is a junior. So Cherry Trees picks up. It's been 2 years later. Now Jeremy, like I said, is a junior now. So he now no longer has Julio there. But what you have now is basically two stories in one form.
And you tackle another very serious topic in your second book, Cherry Trees.
Which is the death, suicide,
Yes.
Without giving away too much, yes. And that was I think one of the things that we were talking about is like what's one of the toughest things to write, and racism, probably that perception of it was probably the toughest thing in the first one. That was probably one of the tougher things, just to sit down and write. In that story was that chapter took a lot out of me.
Emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can relate to that as a writer myself, because when I wrote my first, and I write under the pseudonym Tori Bailey. When I wrote my first book, it was a very emotional book because I was writing about the death of somebody who had once been very influential in my life. And I can remember writing the graveyard scene where my central female character goes to the grave, and when you just feel emotionally drained and zapped. I mean, it took you about a day or so to get over that.
I wrote it. I wrote the chapter. She writes a letter, a suicide letter. So just writing that, and then going back and editing, it's like I don't want to go. I don't want to read this. I don't want I like to go to Starbucks and read, and I probably a couple times write, and a couple times I'm sure I teared up as I'm writing, just because again, I'm looking around, making sure no one's looking at me. But it was just a tough thing, and I even emailed my editor a couple times, like, man, this is tough to write.
Well, and I imagine too, if it's a character that you've put a lot into, killing them off, however you may be killing them off, maybe a little. Well,
and that's especially a sad way. I think it's a sad way, and it's really suicide, especially with high schoolers, is a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because she's actually a sophomore. I don't want to give too much here, but that's with high schoolers. And especially the younger levels, especially with Instagram, Facebook, and all those things out there, has become a bigger issue.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
And I think Hemingway said it better. I think he was right on target when he said the best way to be a good writer, you just open up a vein and bleed on the page. Because if you don't leave a part of yourself on the page, then your reader is not going to get it. That connection's not going to be made there.
Let's touch briefly on this third book coming out in August. Where does the third book take us?
What I originally did was I had the second and third books in one. And my editor emailed me one night, and I didn't get till next morning. She had like an epiphany, like, let's split them up for various reasons. And so basically, this third book takes place Jeremy's senior year in high school. and also then Julio is now his second year past high school in playing baseball still. And like I said, now Alexa is also continuing, because again, there's 3 stories in one. You have Jeremy, you have Julio, and then you also have Alexa dating. So she's kind of still in the mix. So the third story, you still have these 3 stories in one.
Do you think that third book will wrap it up for Julio and Jeremy?
Yes. Well, yes.
Okay. What do you have?
I kind of leave. Again, I don't want to leave too much, but it kind of leaves a little bit hanging at the end. But yeah, it wraps up with them. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself heading from there? You got other things?
Yes, I've actually I'm excited about it. I've written a 4th one that's I put on the back burner, and it's a parallel story about a girl in the same town that golfs.
Oh.
And so she's going to tell her story, but other people, other characters are going to be drawn in. She's friends with Jeremy. She's actually a cousin of Brandy, who Jeremy starts dating. So there's a parallel story, and it's her story, but there's others. So it's a standalone, but yet it's tied in. So I'm excited about that.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about some very, very heavy, serious topics, and these books are young adult books.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even though they do delve into some very, very serious and heavy topics, why would you recommend your books to a high school student or a parent that may be looking for some books for their students to read?
I think just a lot of the topics are relatable. I think the characters are relatable. I also try and keep it from being too heavy. I try and keep away from too many swear words, things like that. Actually, I had someone that reviewed that said actually some middle schoolers could potentially read Blue and White. So again, kind of depends upon the maturity level. And I've even had people that, like for example, a guy I worked with that was in his 60s, he read it and liked it. So I think it's all ages, but obviously it's geared towards young adult. But I think a lot of the topics are just relatable.
Now, well, the way you handled it throughout the book, you address the topics, but you don't delve too heavily. I mean, you deal with them, but there's enough other things going on that kind of balances out.
That you don't get preachy.
And really, the first one was I could have gone so many different ways, and I just wanted to make sure and stay focused on them playing baseball, them get accepted, and dealing with that notion of racism. But there's other things I could have delved off into. For example, when one of the characters dies, how she died, what about the students that she was with, and was there other things that why she died? And I could have gone all different way, you know.
Right. Now, one thing we had talked about very briefly before the show tonight too is, you know, we as an educator, you said at the beginning of every school year, you teachers have to watch a video about teenage suicide and everything like that. So you're now with a lot of the schools now having to do the virtual online things. The students are not in that everyday peer pressure boiling pot that you know can sometimes be the triggers towards that. But now that they're not getting that interaction and they're at home, is that something that parents need to really be paid
Well, really, it's not so much at school where it takes place anymore. It's the online stuff like Facebook and Instagram. For example, a student might go home and see that there was a party and they weren't invited. Why wasn't I invited? You know, or someone got a lot of likes. Someone takes a picture and they don't get a lot of likes. Why didn't I get a whole lot of likes? My friend got a whole lot of likes. So again, it's not so much being at school now. I would say it's worse now. I hesitate. I shouldn't say the word worse, but it's because of the isolation and because of now you got to stay in contact because of these platforms. It allows and opens up the door just as much for some of those things.
Now, if you've joined us tonight, you can get both of Dave's books, Blue and White and Cherry Tree, for $22.50. That's a pretty good bargain because the Blue and White sells for $15 and Cherry Tree sells for $12.50. But tonight, you can get both books for $22.50, and you'll need to use the promo code. We made it really easy for you, Dave, D-A-V-E. Just put it in right before you check out, and it'll give you the discount to get both of the books. And if you want Dave to sign it, you can put a note. You can definitely put a note that you would like to have your book signed. And if there's a specific student or a young person that you'd like to have the book addressed to, just definitely make sure you give us his name, the person's name in the notes, and we'll make sure Dave signs the book for you. The promo code is going to be good until the 1st of August, so which is not that far away. It's, I think, Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But you can definitely go and to get to Dave's books on the southernpenbookshop.com, you just need to go to his author page, and you can find Dave on the authors A through M, and just click on his picture, and it'll take you straight to his author page, where you can see both books, read reviews, catch some blurbs of the books, and go ahead and purchase the books.
Can I mention a little story?
Yes.
You were talking about some heavy topics in the stories, but I think you saw in Blue and White, there's some fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
For example, when I was coaching in Southern Illinois, helping out, there was one kid that was, and he wound up playing college ball, and he hit a ball off the tee and hit a scoreboard. That takes a lot of strength,
Yeah.
and he did it opposite field because that ball, laws of motion. So there's things like that I've worked in, and so again, just the Mike, he sees this happen like, holy cow, like real strong. You know, there's little things I worked in, and just Mike makes fun of himself. So I work in some of the little humor that teenagers, so I think students can and people can appreciate some of that humor.
Yeah, one thing that appealed to me about this book, although, like I said before, baseball is not the major topic through it, there's enough of it in there that would keep, if you've got a young male reader that's a little reluctant to read, but he likes baseball, this might actually be a book he might want to pick up, because they do have their journey with baseball in there. And although it does touch on other things, there's things like the scoreboard and some other fun things like that might actually prompt them to want to read more. So
now if you have parents that maybe would like to use this book as a way to address some of the topics that are going on right now, do you have any reader guides or anything like that
I don't.
that they could get?
I don't.
That sounds too much like being a teacher.
I just, like I said, I've just written a lot of this from experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget. Like, for example, I saw an overdose in the school hallways one time. In fact, I worked into one of the stories. So I mean, just little things like that you see and you work in. It's or you hear about.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for giving us some of your time and coming. And sorry Screech didn't come visit us tonight. He was very vocal earlier. He may be trying to find dinner. Do you want to go ahead and let's start find out who won our giveaway tonight, and why? Or do you have that already?
Yeah, it's going to be. Do we have 2 winners or 1?
We have 2 tonight since we didn't have one last week.
We have Maggie Collins and Janet Hogan Chapman.
Awesome. If you 2 will send us a private message as to what size t-shirt you like to wear and your mailing address. You want a t-shirt tonight, and we'll get it in the mail to you. Just let us know what size you need, and just let us get your postal mailing address. Or either you can email it to us at the southernpenbookshop@gmail.com, and we'll get that. And congratulations, and thank you guys for tuning in. Now our author next week, we're going to shift gears. Next week we're going to go to paranormal romance. We've had humor, we've had young adult. Now we're going to do a little romance. We're going to do some paranormal romance. We're going to have Terrence Smith here next Thursday night. She's going to be here to talk about her 3 books and join in with us. So thank you guys very much for being a part and joining us again tonight. And we hope to see you Thursday night. Again,
Thank
Dave,
you. Appreciate
you
it.
coming.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And y'all have a blessed evening.
And Dave, before we cut shout out with your Instagram if people want to follow you on Instagram.
Oh yeah, Dave Mayer, author. Pretty simple.
Yeah, Dave Mayer.
Dave
Gotcha.
Mayer, author. Yep.
Well, again, guys, thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
and y'all have a great evening.
Appreciate it. All right. Thank you.